Greetings. This is Our Time, the main news at this hour. In the studio, Tatiana Ivanskaya. Once again, hello. Russian troops are attacking civilians in Kherson. This morning, the central district of the city was shelled with artillery. A medical facility was hit. A local resident was wounded. Later, authorities reported 5 more people injured. It was loud in the city at night as well. In the Korabelny district, a man was injured as a result of shelling. In the morning, the village of Vilazarka also came under Russian shelling. 2 local residents were injured there. They suffered mine explosive injuries and concussions. Explosions were also heard last night in the Odessa region. The Russians attacked with drones. The city of Kornomorsk and its outskirts suffered the most. As a result of the attack, the energy infrastructure was damaged. Almost 30,000 customers were left without power. Critical enterprises are operating on generators. Fires broke out at the impact sites, but they have already been extinguished. This is the most massive strike on Kornomorsk since the start of the full-scale invasion, noted Mayor Vasil Hiliev.
Today, the enemy carried out a massive attack on our city. Civilian infrastructure facilities were affected. This is the most massive strike on the city since 2022. There are no casualties, and that probably is the most important thing. I ask everyone to remain calm. Everything is under control. We are doing our job. The municipal services are working. The headquarters has been assembled.
Dnipro region also came under drone and heavy artillery strikes today. The Russian army attacked the Nikopol and Sinelnikov districts. A man was seriously wounded, and a woman was also injured. 2 apartment buildings, a gas pipeline, several private homes, and outbuildings were damaged. Gas pipelines and power lines were also affected. Russia launched 142 drones at Ukraine on Saturday night. This was reported by the Air Force of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Ukrainian defenders neutralized 126 drones of various types, but there were also hits. They were recorded at 10 locations. In 6 more places, debris from downed UVs fell. And now to the situation at the front. There were more than 180 battles in the past day, according to the morning report from the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. The most difficult situation remains in the Pokrovsk and Lyman directions. The Ukrainian Defense Forces repelled a total of 80 Russian attacks. Fierce fighting also continued in the Kupiansk, Toretsk, and Novopavlivka sectors of the front. At the same time, Ukrainian soldiers are holding the line, inflicting significant losses on the enemy. Moreover, the Ukrainian armed forces managed to push Russian occupiers out of the village of Mern in the Kharkiv region.
They were pushed back in both the first and second sectors. Yesterday, Mern was liberated, where the enemy was trying not only to hold their positions, but also to create a kind of foothold for further advances into the Kharkiv region as a whole. But we rendered this tactic ineffective and, as a result, not only pushed the enemy back, but also destroyed the reserves they brought in for new counterattacks.
In the past 24 hours alone, Russia has lost another 810 soldiers in the war against Ukraine. This was reported by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Thus, the total losses of the Russian army have exceeded 1,082,000 personnel. In addition, over the past day, Ukraine's defense forces destroyed 2 Russian tanks, 2 armored vehicles, and 27 artillery systems, as well as more than 370 drones and over 80 units of automotive equipment and fuel trucks. And the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit kicks off today in China. This meeting will be the largest since the bloc was founded. Leaders from more than 20 countries will take part, including permanent members and so-called dialogue partners. The Russian dictator Putin has already arrived in China. He will stay in the country for 4 days until September 3rd. It is reported that the Kremlin leader met with the presidents of Turkey and Iran, as well as the Prime Minister of India. On the eve of his visit to China, Putin once again lashed out at Western countries, claiming that the so-called threat from Russia against them is imaginary. Meanwhile, in Europe, they take the threats coming from Russia very seriously. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz did not even rule out the possibility of drafting women in the long term, provided that the new model of military service does not prove effective. Merz stated this in an interview with the French TV channel TF1. I should note that earlier, the Federal Cabinet of Ministers approved a bill to expand the Bundeswehr by tens of thousands of soldiers. For now, the German army remains voluntary, but if the target growth figures are not achieved, the government will reinstate mandatory conscription. France and Germany will provide Ukraine with more air defense systems and will cooperate more closely in the field of security. This statement was made by German Chancellor Friedrich Merz and French President Emmanuel Macron following the 25th Franco-German Council of Ministers in Toulon. The parties also committed to initiating a strategic dialogue on nuclear deterrence. Andrei Dmytrenko will provide more details on how Berlin and Paris have pledged to help Kiev.
Berlin and Paris have agreed to seek lasting security guarantees for Kiev. To achieve this, it is necessary to exert influence on Russia and increase Ukraine's defense capabilities. This follows from the statement issued after the 25th meeting of the Franco-German Defense Council. The commitments include the immediate provision of air defense systems to Kiev.
In light of the massive Russian airstrikes against Ukraine and its population, as well as the consequences for our own security, France and Germany will provide Ukraine with additional air defense resources. We will also advocate for further contributions from allies and partners within the Ukraine Defense Contact Group, NATO, the EU, and other organizations by allocating resources from their own stockpiles.
Joint statement following the 25th session of the Franco-German Defense Council on the website of the German federal government. Paris and Berlin are ready to strengthen restrictions against the aggressor country if Russia does not agree to a meeting between Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky by September 1st, noted French leader Emmanuel Macron. According to him, he will be ready to join in the sanctions pressure.
As we can clearly see, the gap between the positions Putin takes at international summits and in his dealings with other leaders, and the reality on the battlefield, shows just how insincere he is. The next few days will be decisive. Pressure through additional sanctions will continue both from our side and from the United States in order to force Russia back to the negotiating table. And at the same time, we must maintain our support for Ukraine.
A strong army must become one of the main guarantees of security for Kiev, said German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. Paris and Berlin have pledged to purchase more military products from Ukraine to help meet the financial needs of the country's defense sector. France and Germany have also agreed to speed up Kiev's integration into European defense structures.
The most important principle right now is the need for external strengthening of the Ukrainian armed forces in terms of weaponry, funding, and training. And here, we both share responsibility. Germany bears a greater share, and that will continue to be the case.
Emmanuel stated that a strong Europe will be able to counter possible threats from Moscow more effectively. According to him, cooperation between Paris and Berlin should be the foundation for the region's development.
I believe that today the Franco-German tandem is perfectly coordinated in its actions aimed at strengthening Europe economically, commercially, and monetarily, as well as maintaining its geopolitical position in the face of the aggressive war launched by Russia against Ukraine. We are focused on preparing Europe for these challenges and on making decisions about rearmament to ensure our own defense.
Earlier, the German Chancellor stated that Russia's aggressive actions are destabilizing the situation in Europe. Because of this, Moscow poses a direct threat to Germany's security. Friedrich Merz's bloc in the Bundestag, the CDU/CSU, is actively lobbying for laws that would free up more budget funds to finance the German army. On August 28th, the Cabinet of Ministers approved a bill that provides for the introduction of voluntary military service.
Russia is, and will remain for a long time, the biggest threat to freedom, peace, and stability in Europe. And the German government is responding to this with determination. I am sincerely grateful that we are taking this step today. This puts us back on the path toward a professional army.
The goal of the reform is to increase the size of the German armed forces from 180,000 to 460,000. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius stated that the bill should make contract service attractive enough for citizens so that the government does not have to resort to mandatory conscription. Earlier, Friedrich Merz stated that he plans to make the Bundeswehr the strongest army in Europe. Andrei Dmytrenko for Freedom TV channel.
Subscribe to The Gaze and stay updated on the most important events, top news from Ukraine and all over the world, in-depth analysis, exclusive reports and interviews, all on hand in our channel. Join our community of viewers and stay tuned.